Hi, my name's Tony Rovira and I'm the Managing Director of Azure Minerals. We're an ASX-listed company focused on advancing our nickel and copper sulfide deposit in the Western Australia towards production.
Tony, good to meet you in person.
Yes,
we had the interview online a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and we covered all the technical aspects and we kind of went deep into the geology. I believe some of your viewers liked the technical side of things.
There was a very positive response to that interview because it was quite different. It was more technical and people were pleased to get a bit of a stronger technical understanding of the project.
Good. Yes. Right, but here we are in London. We've got the beautiful weather, British welcome. Yes. And you're over here. Have you done any marketing around it, or have you just come for this week?
Oh, we came last week for the one-to-one show, one-to-one mining investment. And then we have this one, obviously the resourcing tomorrow with Mines and Money. In between, I went and had 3 or 4 days in sunny Scotland.
Oh, more British sunshine.
It was actually good sunshine up there. The Scots have got it and the English don't.
Oh, well, there we go. And so this is called Mines and Money, resourcing tomorrow. We know about the resourcing tomorrow. Is there any money? Have you met with people interested in buying it?
Yes, there are some people. I mean, it's only the first day of the conference, but already we've had several people come to us and ask if there's opportunities for them to participate in financing of feasibility study or even further down the track construction.
It's good to know, because sometimes when you're walking around the floor, you don't. I mean, I see so many old mates, you know. So it's quite hard to see the people that aren't the mining companies in there.
No, there was definitely the people. There's 2 groups of people who are interested in talking to us about money. One of them is the banks and the financiers themselves, and the others are active mining companies who are looking for the next project for their portfolio, and they would like to participate in either at the project level or at the corporate level with us. And so we're fielding a number of inquiries.
From corporates?
Yes.
That's interesting. It's been a torrid year for the resources sector. You're not the only company that's sitting on a down year. Can you just kind of talk, the glib answer, we were just kind of, before the camera started rolling, was more sellers than buyers. But can you just kind of talk about the anatomy of kind of a share price fall over the year?
And part of it is the post-discovery, that euphoria of making a discovery when your share price skyrockets. And then it gets into the more steady as you go reporting of results. And unless there's something startlingly good, then people will say, oh, this is more of the same. So they're looking to move on to the next greatest story with another company somewhere else. So, and it's very difficult to keep coming up with brand new discoveries all the time.
Well, so you're basically saying that while the envelope of new discoveries, the envelope of mineralisation is expanding, you capture the market's attention. But in a sense, the technical work, and when we were talking about it, you've got that kind of that corridor, and then you've got that funnel that widens out. In a sense, you've got lots of exploration potential.
But with the nickel exploration that we were doing and the development studies, the scoping study we're doing, we're sort of in a bit of a hiatus at the moment. All the results we're getting are more of the same. What had a significant positive impact on our share price was the discovery of those lithium-rich pegmatites, in where, as you said, the funnel was opening up, and that certainly jagged the market's interest and sent our share price up. But it's a bit of a sugar hit, and it came back down again after that. And I think that in some respects, the market they know what to expect on the nickel, and they're waiting to see what we get with the lithium.
Okay, interesting. Just on that kind of the lithium nickel mix, you've got a really nice nickel asset. You've got this lithium kind of opportunity there. Yeah. Lots of the Australian market, the Australian market is particularly hot on lithium. I'm seeing Canadian assets being pulled into the Australian market to kind of relaunch themselves as an Australian lithium play. Are you, how are you going to, what's the discussion at the board level? I mean, are you kind of resolutely, this is a nickel company, we've got a little bit of opportunity through lithium, or what's that board conversation?
It's probably a bit more, excuse me, it's probably a bit more solid on the lithium front than that. I mean, yes, definitely the nickel is very important to us. it is by far and away the most advanced component of the portfolio that we've got. And so we will be pushing the Andover nickel project through the scoping studies into feasibility studies towards production absolutely as fast as we can. But we also recognise that the lithium pegmatites at Andover give us another opportunity to add a valuable string to the bow. So we're not ignoring it. We are definitely putting some efforts, some manpower and some funding towards advancing our knowledge on the lithium as much as possible. But bear in mind, we've yet to drill a hole into these pegmatites. Yeah. We've got a lot of surface samples, and we can certainly find a lot of pegmatites sticking out of the ground, and they visually appear to have a lot of spodumene within them. And certainly the early grab samples we've taken have confirmed that. However, the truth's in the drill bit.
Have you got a split, kind of a mental split? I don't know if you've spoken about it at the board level in terms of the exploration budget for next year, or even the first half of this year, next year?
There is a split. I'd probably say that probably 2/3 would be looking at the nickel and advancing the nickel, and probably 1/3 would be going towards lithium now.
Higher risk, but potentially very high reward.
Absolutely, that's right. And as I said, we have yet to put a drill hole in there. We need to get heritage approvals from the local traditional owners before we can go out on the ground. And just in terms of the outcrop-wise, the outcrop which hosts the nickel, the mafic and the ultramafic rocks, is quite different from the outcrop of the pegmatites that host the lithium. And because those outcrops present differently at surface, there could be different levels of importance to the local traditional owners, and we need to find that out.
Okay. So do you have an idea on kind of timeline, what that is going to reflect into?
Yes, we are arranging currently a timing on doing a heritage survey with the traditional owners. We're hopeful of being able to get that done within the next 2 or 3 months, and then we'll be drilling as soon after that as we can.
Providing you get the permissions.
True, but a lot of the areas where we looked at these outcropping pegmatites are already well disturbed because there was some significant level of artisanal mining that was done on them back in the 1950s and 1960s, but in fact by some of the local Aboriginal groups. For tin, tantalum and emeralds.
Right.
So these pegmatites have got some quite substantial small scale but artisanal type mining that's going on there, so they're well disturbed at the moment. So it's reasonable to expect that it's unlikely that there'll be some significant cultural value to that, but we need to find that out by doing the surveys.
Follow the due process.
Yes.
And what about the nickel? So you've got Andover, next to it you've got Ridgeline, and then up the track you've got
Seaview and Skyline.
Seaview and Skyline, then to the north you've got Pipeline, is that right?
Yes. And all of those, certainly Seaview, Skyline, and we've drilled quite a few holes into those too, Seaview and Skyline, and we've hit a lot of sulfides, and they're nickel in those sulfides as well. So we need to do more work on those to bring them up to a level which we can contemplate doing a resource on them. The geology on those two is a little bit complicated, so we drill a few holes, wait to get the results, go away, think about things for a while, and then send the rig back in for another go later, which is quite unlike what we did at the Andover deposit, where it
was very straightforward.
It was literally straightforward. It was a big blob of mineralisation sitting there, and it was pretty easy to step out and continue to hit.
And Ridgeline's thinner, isn't it? But it hangs together quite nicely. You've got some plunging shoots in there.
Yeah, there's the overall Ridgeline mineralised zone is probably 350 metres long. But within that, there's a couple of higher grade shoots, which would be probably 50 metres wide by 50 metres long by maybe 20 metres wide, and they plunge towards the northwest. And within those, there's massive sulfides, and those massive sulfides are nice high grade, sort of 2 to 3% nickel. So I think that Ridgeline, when we do get the resource back, and that's expected in January, I think that we'll see that there's going to be some nice high grade parts to that resource. I don't expect the tonnes to be anywhere near as big as Andover, but it'll be a nice addition to that Andover Ridgeline composite deposit.
I had in my mind about 10% of the tonnes.
I don't want to put a number to it just yet. Thanks, Merlin. I'll wait till January.
Okay. Also, significant contributions to the overall value from copper and from cobalt as well.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think overall broadly speaking, you're going to say 80% of the value will be in the nickel,
Okay.
maybe 15% copper and 5% cobalt. Okay. But it's a nickel deposit with a credits. Yeah.
Credits.
Yeah.
Good. And so the plan for next year. Mm-hmm. I mean, have we done enough looking back at 2022? Let's stick with that. Let's just stick with 2022 and the market. Have you seen any signs of life from the retail investor or the institutional investor looking for nickel assets? You know, or does that seem to be kind of still quiet?
It's quiet from the retail side. I think the retail side see the headline that says lithium and they all pile into the lithium stocks. They don't see nickel in the headline. But we all know that nickel and copper are going to be needed in ever greater quantities going forward. Yeah. So the people that are potentially more knowledgeable or have a longer term viewpoint, they're still very much interested in the nickel side of things. And this isn't just the bankers, I mean, it's the corporates as well. The big players are all looking to increase their exposure to nickel.
And you've got a series of kind of quite large shareholders, including the Crux Group,
and Deutsche Balaton, the German
Deutsche Balaton.
Yeah. Yes, and both of those two large ones have been very supportive in the past and say that they're going to be so going into the future as well, which is good.
Good. So then let's look into 2023.
Yep.
And what are the kind of the main blocks of work? And you've touched on the mineral resource for Ridgeline. That's coming out almost out of the gate in the new year, isn't it? Is that the first thing?
Yeah, so the resource for Ridgeline will be in January, announced in January. The drilling's all completed. The assays have all been received. The modelling has been done and is now off with the independent consultants for them to put it all together and to give us the final resource. Having said that, the mineralisation of those high-grade shoots at Ridgeline still remains very much open at depth. I mean, it's probably one of our very best drill intersections is which we announced last week, is 14 metres at 2.5% nickel, is the deepest hole that we've got in the body, and it shows that it's still wide and good grade at depth. So there'd be potential to make Ridgeline larger with more drilling in the future. But in the meantime, we want to put out an interim resource on it so that we can include it into a scoping study, which is the next cab off the rank. So once we get the resource out from Ridgeline, it will be joined in the scoping study with the Andover resource, which is already in there.
And that resource goes down to about 500 metres, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And so we'll have a scoping study or a PEA that's going to come out in hopefully by the end of the first quarter of next year, of 2023.
Okay, so hot on the heels.
Yes, that's it. And it will include all of the usual components that you get in these types of studies of metallurgy and mine planning and geotechnical studies, environment studies, all those things. All of those components will be included into the scoping study for both Andover and Ridgeline. And so it's likely that we will put together a common mine plan where it will be conjoined, if you like, a single entrance which could then turn left and right and exploit both Andover and Ridgeline.
Turn
so it comes in from
the east to Andover and to the west.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Okay. So and with that scoping study comes out, it will have financial metrics within it. So we'll be able to announce to the public what the results of that, which would indicate, yes, it's positive and we're going forward, or no, it's not positive and we're not going forward, whatever the outcome is. If the outcome of the study is a positive number, a positive outcome, then we would be looking to accelerate the next stage of the development studies, which would mean going straight for a full feasibility study, potentially not doing a PFS. So I think Andover project lends itself, in terms of its size and its compactness, to doing 2 studies into development rather than 3.
Is that because you've already drilled it out to indicated?
Yes.
So you've got the drill density, and also the geometry of the ore body is sufficiently uniform, not uniform, but kind of contained.
It's very consistent.
Consistent, thank you. That it's pretty obvious how it's going to be mined.
Yes, it is. And the mine planning has gone down that road and has developed that. The next stage of the mine planning is, okay, so that's turning east to develop Andover. Let's turn west and develop Ridgeline. Ridgeline is, without predicting things too much, I expect that it's going to be mostly or all it's going to be inferred. So, however, we can still put a mine plan to it because our knowledge of the shape of the mineralised shoots is quite strong. So we'll be able to put together a mine plan for that as well.
You can for a PEA or a scoping study, but obviously if you're going to go for a more advanced study, you've got to have measured and indicated.
Correct. So which would mean more drilling into ridgeline and which will not only internally within it to upgrade it from inferred to indicated, but also probably deeper so that we can add some more tonnes to it as time goes by. So we want to put all of that together, but the Andover deposit itself, 4.6 million tonnes is the total resource. 3.8 million tonnes is in the indicated category. And it's not scattered. It's actually a very confined block of mineralisation that is incredibly consistent in terms of its width and its grade across.
So let's say you've said scoping study end of Q1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then if you go into the most advanced study you can do, whether that's let's call it a feasibility study. You're looking at a 12-month or 18-month timeline?
I would ballpark 18 months towards the end of 2024.
And that's because of long lead items such as baseline studies, environmentals.
That's the key. That's the key. It's not the resources and it's not the mine planning. It's your baseline environmental surveys that need to be done. And where we're operating, you're looking at a minimum 2 to 3 year period for doing these studies.
And you've obviously started
We've
already.
completed 1 year now. Yeah. And so we've probably got another 1 to 2 years that we have to do. And so you need wet season, dry season or winter, summer type studies to be done. But the studies that or the results of the studies that we've done so far on the environmental side has come back quite positive. There's nothing that untoward that's been found. We haven't found any rare little species that lives there. Everything that's there is as expected. Of course, there are innumerable components within those environmental studies that we need to make sure we do properly and tick those boxes. And it's this sort of fauna and this sort of fauna and flora and bugs that live in the ground.
Yeah,
and
there are no shortcuts.
Not anymore. No. However, having said that, that the governments, both state and federal in Australia, are very strong in promoting that mining is necessary to advance our challenge, fight against the challenge of climate change. So this is your environment versus climate debate that is going to be taking place. But certainly the governments and the bureaucracies have been very positive in saying that mining is important and they will support it without taking shortcuts, doing the job properly and making sure that we have a very robust and sensible development decision.
I was just kind of going around in my head, the environment versus climate. Surely it's climate versus climate or environment versus environment. I mean, you can get into a circular argument quite quickly.
We're getting off the subject of Andover and Azure right at the moment. But if you want to have battery powered cars, for example, and you need lithium, but you don't want that lithium mine to be built next to your house, then that's the challenge that the people are going to have to face.
The modern conundrum that's facing a lot of people.
Yes, very much so.
Good. So 2023 has got the feasibility, the ridgeline resource, then the scoping study for the combined Andover ridgeline, and then you're straight into the ongoing study. Meanwhile, in parallel to that, you've got, let's say, 1/3 of your budget or a quarter to a third of your budget, which is being allocated to the lithium. Yeah. You've got the heritage surveys to go on, and then perhaps in Q2 you'll be able to start on the groundwork.
Yeah, well, if we take one step back or half a step back from that and saying as part of the nickel focus strategy, not only are we doing the resource for ridgeline and the scoping study and then moving into a feasibility study, we need to continue drilling. We've got exploration drilling at Seaview and Skyline and Pipeline that needs to continue. We've got innumerable other targets that need to be drill tested as well. We need to put the rigs back into Andover and Ridgeline to be able to do more detailed internal drilling.
Infill
as
drilling. Well as some extension.
Exactly, yeah. So we've got a lot of work that's nickel focused, which includes a lot of drilling.
Yeah.
Having said that, we also want to be doing some work on the lithium. So as soon as we have completed the heritage surveys and we've received the requisite approvals, we will be putting a drill rig out there to test those pegmatites that we can. So I'm hopeful we'll be drilling on the lithium targets in the first quarter of next year. And it could well be that we'll have two different teams operating on the same project area. One's a nickel team and one's a lithium team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very busy year next year.
I bet. And when in terms of the marketing, you're going to be obviously driven by news flow and trying to catch a wave, trying to kind of catch paddling like mad, just trying to catch that wave of interest. Are you going to spend a lot of time on the corporates? Is that where you think the next tranche of money comes from, or are you going to keep plugging away with the retail and the institutions and just hope that one of these days they'll start listening?
Well, it's probably a bit of a combination of all of the above. But firstly, at the end of the last quarter, we announced that we had $8.9 million still in the bank, and we're spending on average over the last year probably about $1 million a month. So that gives you an indication as to what our runway ahead of us as expenditure goes. But we also sold our Mexican assets. We announced that back in July, and in a 2-tranche transaction. And the first tranche involved the Canadian junior paying us $4 million, which they've done. And this is Bendito Resources, and they're looking to list on the TSX Venture Exchange they're hopeful in the first quarter of next year. Once they're successful at their listing, then they are required, the second tranche of the payment has to be made, and that's another $6 million Australian dollars. Okay. So if they're successful, hopefully they are, and they'll be paying us another $6 million, which adds to our funding at that stage. But we'll also be looking to go out to raise some more money, because feasibility studies and drilling, whether it be for nickel or lithium, it's expensive, and so we'll need to raise some more money, because we want to push Andover forward as quickly as we can to get to that decision to mine point of view. A final investment decision into building a mine would be really great if we could do that, say, between 2 and 3 years from now. And to do that, we need funding, and so we'll be looking for the right place. But as I said earlier, we're getting knocks on the door from various parties wanting to talk to us about funding us, accessing offtake, project or offtake or concentrates, all those sorts of things. So we need to talk to those and then work out the best way corporately to go forward.
That's why the scoping study or the PEA is such a critical document.
Absolutely,
because it benchmarks you next to peers, and you can start looking at comparable valuations and relative cheapness versus expensiveness.
That's right, and I think that my gut feel at the moment is that the scoping study is going to give us a positive outcome, and certainly with just the shape of the Andover deposit lends itself to a relatively inexpensive underground mining techniques. Yeah. So that's a positive. And of course, you've got the nickel price, which is consistently sitting in the mid 20,000s. Yeah. $10, $11, $12 a pound. Yeah, so that's very strong. And if it stays in above $20,000 a tonne, then it makes Andover look very attractive.
It's a ripper. Good. Well, on that note, good luck for next year. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, Merlin.
I hope you enjoy the continued stay here in the UK, and then get a good flight back to back
home and get stuck back into it out back there.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Merlin.